What's up everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Now let's get into it. George St. Pierre believes Francis Ngannou will get paid either with or without the UFC. MMA legend George St. Pierre knows a thing or two about contract negotiations, especially with the UFC, and damn short when it comes to being a dominant champion. The former two-division UFC champ believes fighters who are in a position to negotiate a great deal for themselves should be able to get their fair value. So when it comes to Francis Ngannou, GSP believes that he needs to get what he deserves and be ready to move away from the UFC if they're not ready to do that. GSP and Ngannou are represented by the same management company, and the two are friendly with each other. For GSP, it's all about fair market value. He relayed what he's been telling Ngannou in a recent interview with Ariel Helwani, in which he stated this.
I'm telling him as a friend, like, you need to get paid to his value, you know what I mean? And if he's not satisfied with what the UFC gives him, go seek, go get your service somewhere else where they're gonna pay you well, you know what I mean? Because he's not young, he's coming to a point that.
GSP goes on to say that as a heavyweight, Ngannou is in just as much danger as he is to others, given the power behind all of their strikes. On any given night, a well-timed punch that lands flush can put your lights out. Ngannou is the one who dishes that out, but it could just as easily happen to him. So goes the life of being a heavyweight fighter. This is one of the biggest reasons he needs to get what he can now, especially with how good Ngannou has become, how big of a name he is, and the fact that he has the title. At the moment, the heavyweight champion is out due to knee surgery and likely will not return to fight this year. His last fight this past January at UFC 270, which saw him beat his former sparring partner Ciryl Gane via unanimous decision, was his last fight on his current UFC deal, and negotiations are expected to resume later this year. What do you make of GSP's advice to Ngannou? Jon Jones calls out MMA media and others over hypocrisy connected to Chael Sonnen altercation. More details have emerged regarding Chael Sonnen's physical altercation that took place at a Las Vegas hotel in December, with now Jon Jones calling out the MMA media, Dan Hooker, and everyone else over what he says is hypocrisy. Let's start at the beginning, as Jon Jones was detained by police over an alleged domestic battery altercation at a hotel and casino in Las Vegas back in September. Video of him in handcuffs outside the resort was posted much later, but it showed him being confrontational with police and headbutting a cop car. While charges over this incident were later dropped, he was kicked out of his longtime MMA home, Jackson Wink MMA, and he was widely convicted in the court of public opinion, with Sonnen himself condemning Jones's actions. About 3 months later, Sonnen himself was accused of battery at a hotel and casino in Las Vegas. Jones then pointed out the irony right as that incident took place. At the time, UFC lightweight and featherweight fighter Dan Hooker defended Sonnen, believing what Brendan Schaub had been saying, and that Sonnen was defending his wife's honor from a couple who were mouthing off to them very aggressively. A lot of insults were hurled between Hooker and Jones once again on Christmas Day. Since then, Jones had been silent on Sonnen's issue, until new details recently emerged, with Sonnen now accused of attacking a couple randomly and bloodying the mouth of a female. Sonnen's wife also was hurt in the melee, although it's unclear what caused her injuries, and Sonnen denied ever being physical with her. Since those details came out, Jones called out Brendan Schaub and Dan Hooker, and in a series of deleted tweets, stated this. At Dan the Hangman, Brendan S. Is this what you guys are jumping down my throat about? Man, everyone and their mom covered my story when I was an asshole in Las Vegas. Sonnen allegedly attacks his wife, another woman, along with like 5 men in crickets. Then in a tweet he left online, he said this. Defending honor? While Schaub has yet to comment, this is what Hooker responded with. Explain how this makes you any less of a piece of Sonnen is now set to appear in the Las Vegas court on April 27 in connection with 11 criminal charges, including felony battery by strangulation. What do you think about Jones's comments here? And what do you make of what's going on with Chael Sonnen? UFC 273 shuffle as Nassourdine Imavov withdraws from Kelvin Gastelum fight. Visa issues are going to prevent Dagestan's Nassourdine Imavov from entering the United States ahead of his scheduled UFC 273 bout against Kelvin Gastelum on April 9th. The 26-year-old Imavov was looking to make it 3 wins in a row after beating Ian Heinisch and Edmund Shabazian last year, both TKO victories in the second round. This leaves former middleweight title challenger Kelvin Gastelum without an opponent, as he was set to return to the octagon for the first time since losing to Jared Cannonier via unanimous decision in August. Gastelum, however, filled fans in on the goings-on behind the scenes as he tagged Ali Abdelaziz and UFC matchmaker Mick Maynard in this tweet about his fight. "Okay, we found a fighter to fill in last minute. Hashtag UFC 273 is still a go." At the time of this video, it was unclear who exactly would fill in to fight against Gastelum with less than 2 weeks to go. Still, the UFC had been looking to replace the Gastelum fight by matching up Ilir Latifi and Alexei Oleinik in a heavyweight bout, which the promotion says will go ahead for April 9th regardless of what happens, although where on the card is yet to be decided. The UFC 273 card features 2 title fights, including the featherweight title fight between Alexander Volkanovski and the Korean Zombie, as well as the bantamweight title unification fight between Aljamain Sterling and Peter Yan. It also includes the highly anticipated welterweight matchup between Khamzat Chimaev against Gilbert Burns, and a women's fight between Mackenzie Dern and Tecia Torres. Which fight are you most excited to see for UFC 273? And the UFC will be returning to Singapore for their first ever pay-per-view in Southeast Asia, as UFC 275 will feature 2 spectacular title fights and a big middleweight clash. UFC 275 will take place at the Singapore Indoor Stadium on June 11th, with the headline fight being light heavyweight champion Glover Teixeira defending his title against Jiri Prochazka, while the co-main event is going to be Valentina Shevchenko putting up her flyweight title against Taylor Santos, and former middleweight title challengers Marvin Vettori will take on Robert Whittaker. What do you think about UFC 275 taking place in Singapore? Don't forget to take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all of the latest fight news. Neil Magny ties GSP's record, wants to fight Khamzat Chimaev. With his split decision win over Max Griffin over this past weekend at UFC Columbus, Neil Magny tied Georges St. Pierre's record of 19 wins in the welterweight division. Not bad for someone who went 1-2 in their first 3 fights for the promotion. Magny, a rangy New Yorker with big wins over Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit, is currently 9th in the division and believes he has the goods to make another run at the 170-pound title. He's throwing his hat in with other fighters in the potential sweepstakes to take on dominant welterweight champion Kamaru Usman, who would have to get past Leon Edwards in a title defense set for later this year. However, it looks like the contenders are lining up, as rumors are rampant that the Khamzat Chimaev-Gilbert Burns fight, scheduled for UFC 273 on April 9th, will be a title shot eliminator. For Magny, he wants big-time fights, especially after getting past a tough Max Griffin for his second straight win, following his victory over Jeff Neal in May of last year. Following UFC Columbus this past weekend, this is what Magny stated about potentially challenging Khamzat in the future, especially given Chimaev's penchant for calling everyone out.
Yeah, I mean, all I can do is, like I said, be consistent. I mean, no one will fight him. Neil Magny will. Neil Magny will fight anyone in this fucking planet right now. I mean, you call me tomorrow and say, hey, Ngannou, end of the month, you want to fight him? I'm there. I'm just that kind of competitor. I do not care who it is. Khamzat would be ideal, but like I said, at the end of the day, if UFC calls you tomorrow and says, hey, we got so-and-so next month, how do you think about it? Sign me up, I'm there.
Later on, Magny goes on to say that he doesn't begrudge Khamzat for being in the conversation of a potential title shot, and that he can only control what he does. Magny says that if he had beaten Michael Chiesa in their main event Fight Night card back in January 2021, he would be in a much different position. What do you think about Magny saying he'd be up for a scrap against the surging welterweight in Chimaev? And who do you think would win that fight? Decorated grappler and former UFC heavyweight champion, 44-year-old Fabricio Verdum, is considering retirement after just 1 fight in the PFL. Verdum all but confirmed the news during a Portuguese language interview this week. He said, quote, "Talking about MMA, I think it's hard for me to come back because it's more dedication," and went on to say, "If there's a boxing match, I'd do it. To sum it up, boxing, yes. MMA, no. It would need to be an out-of-this-world offer to make me stop doing what I've been doing right now." In addition, the Gaucho revealed that he refused a $1 million contract to renew with the UFC. What do you think about the 44-year-old Verdum considering retirement? Melvin Manhoef chases down 3 burglars. In a recent interview with MMA Fighting, well-known fighter Melvin Manhoef confirmed that he was indeed involved in an altercation that saw him chase down several potential burglars. The Bellator fighter, who lives just outside Amsterdam, gave a statement to local police after the incident in which he punched the window of the alleged burglar's car, but he says he could face criminal charges over what transpired. though he did state that he did it all to protect his family. A photo from the scene showing Manhoef standing with some of the alleged burglars on the ground also hit Twitter. Manhoef talks about how he was told by neighbors that the men were back after they had cased the joint just a few weeks earlier, and as he waited outside his home for them, they reappeared in the car. They saw Manhoef and they tried to move away, with Manhoef chasing after them, and they crashed their vehicles. Then Manhoef went up to their car, and this is where he described the scene in more detail to MMA Fighting. I said, "Open the window," and I smashed the window in, and I pulled the guy out, opened the door, and put the guy on the ground. I was yelling, I was going like crazy. Everybody put their hands and knees on the ground. Some people were helping. They came out of their houses and they called 911. In a few minutes, they were there. Because if they're going to burgle in and my wife is there, they tie my wife up or my kid up. I couldn't forgive myself. My instinct was, you cannot come around my family. This is like rule number 1. Don't touch my family. If you do that, yeah, you're gonna pay for it. The 45-year-old Manhoef is scheduled to take on Yoel Romero on May 6th in Bellator 280. But what do you think about what transpired here? Thanks so much for joining us today and catching up on all things MMA. What do you make of what's going on in the fight world? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all of the latest fight news. See you next time.